You know, the decision to enter politics at any level is rarely a singular one. For the candidate, it's often a decision that involves the entire family. And it's often the entire family that either makes or breaks a candidate. On the program today, we meet the woman who shares the governor's mansion in the state of Kentucky. Jane Beshear is going to join us. She's a businesswoman, an educator, a community leader, and she's dedicated her life to the service of others. She continues to champion the causes of education, cancer awareness, military support, and lots more. First Lady Jane Beshear coming up next on Outlook. The program is Outlook. I'm Barbara Deeb, and we are delighted to have with us in the studio First Lady Jane Beshear. You know, thanks for being here because we've been trying to coordinate our schedules, and you made a special effort to be here today, so I appreciate that.
Delighted to be here.
Well, and you told us something. Some of you watching this program may not be aware of the fact that Jane Beshear actually went to grade school, and part of her high school years were spent in the Bowling Green area, so you lived in these parts.
We did for a number of years. I went to grade school here and 1 year of high school, and both of my sisters graduated from Bowling Green High.
So there you have it. And you have a personal motto. You know, when we do the research on our guests, there was one that stood out. Your motto is personal responsibility.
It is.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because you have the ability in your position to affect change, certainly, and personal responsibility, not necessarily to change, but to enlighten people about that. Share your thoughts.
Well, I just feel like that for each of us, if we do something, if we take the responsibility to do something to make change for ourselves and for others, then when you add that all together collectively, people can make a huge difference. And if everybody sits and waits for somebody else to do something, then we never move forward. So I truly believe that if I'm going to ask others to become involved and to advocate for different things that are important to us as women or people or as citizens, then I think it's my responsibility to also do, not just talk, but to do.
You know, there were those, and I won't tell my sources, but on your staff, who say the only person that Steve Beshear needs to worry about running against is his wife, Jane Beshear. You are a popular First Lady, and as such, you do have that opportunity to affect change, to influence others. You have championed the cause of education, and that's really at the forefront. You're a former teacher.
I'm a former teacher. I'm also a parent, although my children are grown now. But I do have the position, being married to the governor, to be able to advocate for things that I think are so important for the future of the Commonwealth. You know, my children are grown now, but I have grandchildren. So as far as education is concerned, I know that's the answer to the future. That's the answer for Kentucky moving forward. It's the answer for not only my grandchildren, but for every child in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And now where I am right now in my life, I feel like all those children belong to me, and I want to make sure that every single child has the opportunity to be successful, and I think they can all be.
Well, and I want to talk a little bit more about your efforts and lobbying to get people to stay in school longer in the state of Kentucky. But before we get there, let's wax philosophical, if we can, just a little bit about education in the state of Kentucky. You've been in the political limelight for a while. Prior to that, you were very active in the JCs, the Junior Chamber of Commerce. So you've seen the state. You've been to all parts of the state. How are we faring as it relates to, you know, sometimes we only see the good stuff, but you know, what about looking around some of those corners? What are we seeing?
Well, I think there's always room for improvement, but I will tell you that being in the position I am, I see so many good things happening. There are some tremendous programs in education all around our state, from the most rural areas to the most urban areas. There are people involved in education that are truly making a difference. There are programs like the STEM program, which is math and science. There are schools that are dedicating themselves to either agriculture or to the medical programs. These are not talking about high schools. Mm-hmm. There are, I go into elementary schools and I see the excitement of children about reading and expanding their minds. It to me, you know, it's very easy to sit at home and say, and wring our hands and say, oh my gosh, we're You know, we used to be 48th, but you know, we're 37th or we're 35th, and you know, Kentucky needs to do more in education. Well, I'll tell you, we are doing a lot. It is not an easy task. Every child is different. I feel like as we move ahead in education, we do need to remember that every child is not a round peg that goes in a round hole. That
if only.
You know, children learn in different ways, and our colleges and universities and our colleges of education are really working with our new upcoming teachers to really give them the tools, not only while they're in college, but also after they go to the classrooms. And you know, I'm really excited about the future of education and the future for our children. What we need to do, though, is we have to expect our children to succeed. And I don't mean just the schools, I mean the communities, every single one of us.
So it does take a village, really, to raise all these children. It takes a village,
without a doubt.
And one of the issues that's always been prevalent across the nation, but especially in the state of Kentucky, is the cycle. Breaking this cycle of, you know, maybe my parents weren't educated, so education doesn't hold that same flair for me. So how do we break that cycle?
Well, for one thing, we have to break that cycle, because today, the jobs of today, are not the jobs of 20 years ago or 50 years ago or wherever you want to choose. You know, Kentucky, it was an agricultural state and a coal mining state, and for many of our young people, they could drop out of school and they could get a job on the farm or work on the family farm or work in the mines, or even some of our manufacturing jobs did not require a high school education. But today, you can't get a job, a permanent job. You might get a part-time job, but you won't get a permanent job and a job that can provide for your future unless you have the minimum of a high school diploma. Even the military will not accept you now if you do not have a high school diploma. So the days of our young people being able to drop out of school is over. What we have to do is make sure that our children are prepared, and that means high school educations and then job training beyond that, whether it's college or whether it's career and tech. We need to make sure that everyone has the ability to be able to be employed. That's the only way we move our state forward. That's how we encourage businesses to look at Kentucky and want to locate here. They want an educated workforce.
Well, now, as it compares the state of Kentucky to the nation, our high school dropout rate is a little below average, but one person dropping out is not a good thing, you know, so no matter.
Well, actually, if you look at the records, we probably have about 6,000 students that drop out every year. That's 6,000 lives that are affected from now on. Even though our graduation rate has improved dramatically over the years, we still have a ways to go. And, you know, if you look at the population of Kentucky as a whole, about 25% of the adults in Kentucky do not have a high school education. So what we're doing...
Say that again. People, that's a wow.
It is.
25%.
25% of the adults in Kentucky do not have a high school education. So what we're doing is continuing to add to that. And some of those are people from the past that, you know, as I spoke before about people who could take jobs in the past, and many of those people are retired or you know, have been able to do other things, but not today's youth. It's different. It's a different ball game today.
And we're going to talk more about that ball game and what First Lady Jane Beshear is doing to keep Kentucky children in high school longer. When Outlook continues right after this. Stay with us. Outlook continues. I'm Barbara Deeb, and we're going one-on-one with Kentucky First Lady Jane Beshear. Before the break, we were talking about the fact that, did you know, trivia, she grew up in Bowling Green and attended some of the schools in this area, in this region, in Warren County, and you were a teacher. So education is extremely important to you. Certainly, as First Lady of Kentucky, you can have lots of causes. You can champion lots of things, but education is right there at the forefront. In particular, you want to keep our Kentucky high schoolers, our young people, in high school longer. So that is referred to as House Bill 216. Tell us a little more about that.
Well, we've been working with this for quite some time. The idea is that we raise the dropout age. So many of the states across the country have already raised it. Right now, it is 16 in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. That age was established in 1921. So when you think about the difference between 1921 and 2012, things are so different. And we just feel like if you expect our students, if we expect, and that's my word, expect our students to stay in school and graduate, that's what this is all about. It's to say to them that if you want to have a productive life, if you want to be able to support a family and to succeed in life, that's your minimum, is a high school education. We've asked students, we've done a lot of, we've had a program called Graduate Kentucky, which was, we've had 9 summits across the state. And we brought together teachers and students and business leaders and elected officials talking about what we can do to improve our graduation rate or reduce our dropout rate. And in talking with students, when you ask a student that's dropped out of school, why, many times they will say, because I could. So then you turn around and you say, if you were required to stay in school till you were 18 or until you graduate, if you want to graduate at 17, that's fine. But until you're 18, would that have made a difference for you? And they say yes. And we've talked with many students who've dropped out, and they will tell you it was the greatest mistake of their life. So if we can establish a law in Kentucky that says, and to join so many of the states that surround us and say we expect our students to graduate, we expect them to stay in school, we expect the parents to expect the children, we expect the communities to expect the children, then, you're a parent, I'm a parent, and now as a grandparent, you expect your children to do something, and when you do, they do. So what we want to do as a state is say, we believe in you, young people of Kentucky, and we expect certain things out of you.
There's the key. We believe in you. In essence, we're setting the bar higher. We're saying this is what we expect of you. Okay, so that having been said, how is it that you're going about expecting this with the state law? House Bill 216 has been introduced.
It has, and actually we've been working on this ever since my husband was elected, just because I feel so strongly about it, as does he. But in fact, this was part of KERA back in the 1990s. And
Kentucky's Education Reform Act.
And it was taken out of that legislation at that point in time. It's probably been proposed, oh my gosh, almost every year since then. And the idea is that we would phase it in. There is concern that if you just suddenly change it, it would be very difficult for the schools and for the young people at this stage.
Sure.
So what we want to say is in this particular bill that as our students enter the 8th grade and 9th grade this coming year, that they will need to be, for the 9th graders, they will have to stay in school till they're 17 or graduate early. Or if they're 8th graders, that by the time they graduate from high school, it would be 18. So we'll give it time to phase in. We will give the schools the opportunity to develop the programs. This is not a silver bullet. This will not solve all the problems, but it sets the expectation. And then what we have to do is what I call the safety net. We have to surround these young people with programs and resources that give them the opportunity to stay in school. Some of our students have to take care of parents. Some of our students have to work. Some of our students are actually parents at an early age. Yes. There's a lot of problems that these children encounter in their lives. So what we need to do is be prepared to help them with those problems, and we can do it. We can be flexible. Many of our systems already have alternative programs. We have individual learning opportunities. There are online opportunities. The Department of Education is working really hard to try to develop programs that will help individual students. We're putting together a tracking system from the time a child enters school, so we can start to track those indicators that a child will might start to have problems.
What are some of those indicators?
Absenteeism.
Okay.
Being behind, starting out behind. That's why early childhood education is so important.
Never catching up.
Being able to give individual attention. We have wonderful programs right now. We were talking earlier, reading recovery programs that help identify children in the first grade and kindergarten and give them individual attention to be able to bring them up to level. To be able to find all those types of indicators as we move along, children that are having behavioral problems, being able to get them into programs that can help them, being able to identify learning disabilities.
So this really spans the gamut, if you will, because we've got to teach our teachers how to identify these things. So we're getting into higher education. We've got to start at preschool. So House Bill 216. Do you think it's going to become a reality this year? Will we see it?
It has already passed the House of Representatives, but to be honest, I'm not sure it's going to be heard on the Senate floor, and it really disturbs me because this is about the children. This is about expectation of the children of Kentucky. What we would like to see is that our state senators allow it to be heard on the floor and voted. Everywhere we go, teachers and students and parents and people who have dropped out of school all agree that this is something we need to do.
Advocates for it.
They truly are.
Yeah.
And so what I would hope is that your listeners will encourage their state senators to look hard at this and to understand, again, it is not the silver bullet. There are a lot of people that are concerned and say it's an unfunded mandate. Well, if a child's in school, the school receives money. If the child is out of school, we end up paying the toll because those are usually on our social service programs. They are underemployed, if employed at all. You will find that the huge majority of those in our jails and prison systems are people who did not graduate from high school. The statistics show that students that drop out of school are less healthy. They require more of assistance.
Medical assistance. So yeah, that has been one of the criticisms of this, is that it's just a cry for more money, but you're saying it balances out in the long run.
My goodness, you know, it's money well spent. We are giving children, we are expecting children to be able to graduate from high school and have the tool to be self-sufficient.
And there you have
That's
it. We're going to talk
well spent.
Money well spent. You heard it here. We're going to talk more about that and some of the other initiatives that Jane Beshear champions. In addition, what's it like really to live in that fishbowl in the governor's mansion? We'll talk about that when Outlook continues with First Lady Jane Beshear right after this. Outlook continues. I'm Barbara Deeb. We're talking with First Lady Jane Beshear. And Jane, before the break, you were talking about your initiatives related to education and House Bill 216 and how you were hoping to see passage of that, keeping kids in school longer. But let's talk about some of the other causes that you champion. Certainly, you've just returned from Corbin right before you got here. And in Corbin, you were at a place called Independence House. Yes. What's that all about?
That is it's a recovery center for drug and alcohol that are young girls who are pregnant or who have just had babies. So it's a program to get them clean, give them direction so that they can go ahead and continue with a successful life and that their babies are born clean.
You know, you also are an advocate for breast cancer screenings and breast cancer awareness. Do you have a personal relationship to that?
No, actually, with cancer in general, my mother died of cancer, and but I've lost friends to breast cancer. One of my best friends in college, sorority sister, died at a very young age of breast cancer. Every time you turn around, somebody else I know is diagnosed. And when you see the number of women throughout the Commonwealth and throughout the state, throughout the nation, that have been diagnosed with breast cancer, it's a huge issue. I don't think there's anybody that you could talk to that has not either lost a friend or a family member or a sibling to breast cancer. So it's something that it's been an initiative of the First Lady's office for about 18 years now. Started by Judy Patton. And it's something that I feel strongly about, and of course affects women, but it does affect men too.
Yes, it does.
That it's something that if we didn't talk about this in past years. You didn't talk about a woman's anatomy.
Right.
And now the more you talk, the more people pay attention, and hopefully.
Well, what are you hoping, though, with this awareness initiative? Just to get people to be, like you just said, men can get breast cancer as well, but just the importance of screenings?
Yes,
the
it's early
accessibility?
detection.
Yeah.
If it's detected early, it's curable.
In most cases,
So then you
yes.
have survivors, and that's the thing. We have several events. We have Celebration of Hope, which is right before the Derby this year. We've changed things a bit, and it's where we bring survivors from all over the state. And it's a phenomenal event. We'll have over 1,000 women and some men who will come, and we celebrate during Derby weekend the greatest race of all, and that's the race of life. And it's a wonderful opportunity to see these women. Some have been survivors for 50 years or more, and others are just now going through their chemotherapy, and they'll arrive with no hair or beautiful hair. But it's a wonderful time to laugh and cry together and to celebrate survivorship.
There you go. And speaking of survivorship, military support. You are very active in that as well, military spouses and supporting their needs.
Well, Kentucky has had during this Iraq and Afghanistan war a huge number of people deployed, both from, we have 2 major bases in Kentucky, Fort Knox and Fort Campbell, and then our National Guard. Our National Guard has had one of the largest deployments since World War II. At one point in time, we had almost 20,000 Kentuckians deployed overseas. So I felt like, not only are those service people serving in their deployment, but their families are serving as well. So what we wanted to do, I visited both of the bases and sat with spouses and talked about their problems, their issues, and even though many of them are not Kentuckians, they're just there because that's where they've been sent in the service. I told them, and I firmly believe this, while they're here, they are Kentuckians, and we want to do whatever we can to help them. So we've been trying to work to give them information. Certain legislation that applies to them as far as their children in schools are concerned, and days they can have off when the parent is deployed or returns from deployment. Trying to give them information about places to go to enjoy in Kentucky.
And
just
really
communication.
Communication, just letting them know that you're there. The state of Kentucky supports their efforts. Before the break, we or when we came back, I said living in a fishbowl. And indeed you do. You've been in public life for a long time, and you're the governor's wife. So yes, people are looking, people are watching. Share with our viewers what that's like on a day-to-day, because you just flew in, you were in Corbin, you were at Independence House, you're here. It's a constant go, 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 isn't it?
It is, but it's fun. I get to meet a lot of people. I get to see a lot of wonderful things that are happening in our state. It's really made me so much more proud of my state. I feel I'm very lucky. I have an opportunity, and I'm trying to take advantage of that. But sometimes it's hard to get up every day and do your hair and do your makeup. I'm a blue jean girl. I'm a farm girl, and I try to be incognito as much as I can. And many times people don't pay any attention to who I am or that I am married to the governor. Now, if I'm with him, it's a different thing. But I can kind of stay under the radar a lot of times.
Which leads me to my next question, nice segue. But would you ever consider running for an office?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
No, I feel like that I've had a wonderful opportunity with this, but when this term is over, we really want to go home and enjoy our grandchildren. And we have a farm, and I'm a horse person, and I miss that connection with the land and being able to spend time with my horses and with my children and with my grandchildren. So, no, I am not interested, never have been.
Well, you've been in it long enough, though, that you can appreciate the changes that have taken place in the way you just running for office anymore, how things have changed.
It is so costly, it is so time consuming, and in so many cases it's just nasty. And for a family, it's for the candidate it's difficult, but for the family it's extremely difficult. When someone says something unfavorable about my husband, I'm very defensive. Sure. It hurts the children. Our grandchildren in Kentucky are too young, 2.5 and 1.5, to really know. But you know, we all take it to heart, and you know, that makes it very difficult. But saying that, I do feel so strongly that we need good people running for office. And if you can withstand the campaigns and the fundraising and all that goes along with it, I want to encourage the good people to get out there and run. That's the only way we make change in our state and in our nation, is if we have good people that listen to the people, that represent the people's wishes. And sometimes we have people who listen to their own wishes, and that's a little disturbing sometimes.
Living in the fishbowl, it's just all part of it. And so leave us with some words of wisdom, which you just about did, but yet to accomplish before you and your husband are out of office, the Beshear administration.
Well, we want to continue on a lot of the same issues that we've been working on. So one of the things Steve's working on right now are the drug issues that are just devastating to our state, such as I visited the
drug treatment
center earlier today. So many of our families are being affected by this. We've just got to stop this. We have got to do whatever we can to bring to a halt this scourge that is just destroying so many families in Kentucky. So we want to make sure that we've got the guidelines and the laws that prevent the illegal use of both prescription drugs as well as the other illegal drugs, including alcohol, that can just devastate the state.
Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your insights with us. It's been a nice opportunity to talk with Kentucky's First Lady, Jane Beshear. Don't forget about Facebook and Twitter. You can find us there. That's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of Outlook. I'm Barbara Deeb. We're glad you joined us.